We're here at the Turn 14 distribution booth at SEMA 2023. Behind me is the E91 project we've been working on going on 6 months now. It's the Pit and Paddock Bilstein E91 GTS Tribute build, and we've documented every detail for you guys to see in a series of the long form videos where we took a 328 Xi and an E90 M3 and combined them into the car you guys see behind me. Let's get into the build series and show you how everything went down. Day one of SEMA 2023. You guys have seen our unveiling of our E91 M3 project that we partnered up with Turn 14 to build. Today is May 3rd, and we're just starting on the project with our 2 donor cars that have arrived. This is the build series. We're going to take you guys through all the details it takes to build the E91 that you guys saw from the 2 donor cars behind me. Special thanks to all the partners involved like Akrapovich, Carbon, Bilstein, SPL, CSF. There's many others involved, so we're going to take you through those, the choices we made for OEM Plus. We really wanted to stick with the question of how would BMW build an E91 at the factory, and then of course if they built that car, what would happen when the aftermarket community gets a hold of it, what mods would have been done in period. The basis of the build, which is the most important donor car of the 2, is the E91 328i. This was the only touring that was available in the E90 platform that can give us the body and the chassis that we needed as a base for the car. This is actually a 64,000 mile car that we found, so it's in really great condition. It has a really clean title. It's a super nice base. Both of these cars are running and driving. Everything works. There's no check engine lights. There's no codes. We needed to buy 2 complete cars because we needed body harnesses from one. We needed body harnesses from another. And as most people know, the E90 front on the M3 is similar to the coupe front, or a lot of the pieces are identical. That whole front end of the car, engine, bumpers, fenders, hood, all of that is all going to transfer over onto this chassis. The first step that Adam is going to take you through and we're going to show today, we're going to drop the subframes out of the E90. We're going to strip down the parts that we need off of that car and go ahead and transfer them over kind of for a rough mock-up, because the E90 M3 has a wider track than a non-M. Once we put the subframes on, we're going to see where the fender needs to go in the back. Like I said, the fenders and everything are going to transfer over directly from the E90 onto this wagon, so the front will be pretty much done. It's just changing parts over. The rear is different. So the M3 has a wider fender, so we're going to have to do some fabrication work back here with this fender, but all of this has to stay intact back here because this is a specific light for the touring. This is a specific fender for the touring. So we're going to have to marry the E90 M3 fender with the wagon fender so that the lights stay the same, but the fender is the exact way BMW would have done it, which is a close mimic to the E90. But once we have the subframes down from the E90 and transferred over here, that's when we can start the fabrication process. Not only do we need to take into account the fender, we also have to take into account the suspension, the ride height that the finished car will be, the wheel offset. The wheels you guys see on the car at SEMA is obviously not the factory wheel, and we want to mimic that, so when we go ahead and mock up this E90 fender, the inner structure and the outer structure not only matches the way the OEM M3 would be, but it also matches exactly where ET25 wheel would sit on an E90. It needs to be the same on the E91. We're really taking that OEM approach. This is a project that really matters a lot to me, that we mimic the way BMW would have done it. So it's an OEM Plus build, and we're going to take the time and do the details that's needed to do that. I actually ordered 2 brand new E90 fenders, outer structure and inner structure, so that not only will we have the metalwork mock up exactly how it was, all of the inner fender, all of the plastic that's under here, everything that is part of the E90 will actually be underneath the car. So it's just like it was at BMW. Adam is actually working on the rear subframe now, so we're going to drop the complete subframe out of the car. And on these cars, the differential and everything is compact into the rear subframe. So all that's going to be dropped off. We'll move that out of the way, and then we'll go ahead and start working on the front subframe, which is obviously where the motor is, the S65. So we'll go ahead and bring that area down. We'll move everything aside, and then we'll go ahead and get the wagon in here so we can do the same thing. One of of the things about a swap like this is the reason we have two donors, running donors, is because there's a lot of pieces on the car that are hidden away. The harness, the body harness and things that are actually different on a wagon versus a sedan. This obviously has a whole different motor in it. It has a completely different transmission, has a completely different differential, and all of those portions of the electronics and all of those portions of the harness are specific for the M3. There's really not a lot of things that would be shared from a 328. Part of this is when we disassemble it, we're not cutting wires, we're not cutting things out of the car. Everything is disassembled the way it would be disassembled if we were powder coating the subframe or if we were doing the subframe bushings or whatever. So the cars will be disassembled as if they were on the assembly line. Everything will be set aside. We have some parts carts, which you guys will see, I'll introduce those later, where we organize all the parts. We have individual poly bags, we have individual bins where everything goes. A lot of the hardware will be replaced on the new car. We will be putting new bushings in the subframes. There's a lot of stuff that we'll be doing that will be OEM, but it will be brand new. I'm gonna have the subframes powder coated so they're brand new. We're gonna do them in like the satin black that BMW would do them in. When everything goes back on, it's as new or it's new from genuine BMW from the factory on the dealership parts. This is normally where the subframe would sit. Subframe bolts up. It's kind of a 4-bolt drop. I mean, it's obviously attached in multiple areas, like the drive shaft's attached to the diff, the shocks are attached to the subframe, arms and all of that. Really, the subframe is held by some major chassis bolts that are here and here and here and here. And this is the trunk underbody area, under panel area that's down. So you can see all the seam sealer from OEM. You can kind of see where it was and what's missing from the back. Now, the other important part to talk about is really fender structure of an E90 M3. There's the inner structure fender, which is here, and there's a seam. Actually have that piece. So there's an inner and outer fender. And then in the E90, and the E91 rather, we're gonna build all of the structure so that it matches, so that the wheel well will fit in OEM. We'll walk over here, I'll show you the subframe out of the car. Anytime we do motors or diffs and stuff, we're gonna drop a subframe. We use a table jack like this. Super easy to bring motors down. We don't take any motors out of the top here, no matter what year the car is. It all comes down through the bottom. We found it's less rough on the car and it's a lot easier for us to get everything out of the way. All this is gonna be media blasted. All of it's, whatever we deem needs to be replaced, we're gonna replace. We're gonna powder coat the subframe. We're gonna change all the bushings to OE. This will have some really nice SPL arms we're gonna put in. So I'll go through that when we get the parts. So in addition to the subframe coming out, we also discharged the AC. We went ahead and pulled the front bumper off, and Adam has started to drain the coolant. We're gonna drain the oil out tomorrow, and then we'll go ahead and start with the rest of the fluids. And then basically the motor is gonna come out. So the motor, tomorrow the motor and the front subframe will be out of the car. And like I said, we're gonna move those aside. Then we're gonna bring the E91 in here, do exactly the same thing that we did, and then these subframes are going to go into the wagon. And that's when you guys are really going to start to see the track width that M3s have, because it's really hard to see it when you look at the car and everything matches and it's all hidden by the fenders and the wheels. But when we have the subframes on the wagon, it's going to be really cool to see that extra width, the bigger brakes, the bigger arms. And what we'll do is we'll actually compare the subframes non-M to M, so you guys can see the difference out of the car of the subframes. So on to tomorrow.